Have you ever done a trust activity? You stand facing away from a friend and then you fall back, trusting that they will catch you. Well, when I was a youth worker, we did an activity called the Trust Fall that took this to a whole new level. We asked for a volunteer to stand on a table, we blindfolded them, and then we had a blanket that was stretched out below them. They'd simply fall off the table into the blanket. Loads of fun. What could possibly go wrong? Now, we'd done this activity many times and didn't really think much of it. We picked a young person who'd volunteered, they stood on the table, they put the blindfold on, but then they froze. They couldn't do it. So we got them down and another eager volunteer was picked. They got into place on top of the table, they put their blindfold on and they turned around. But instead of just falling backwards, they jumped. We caught them in the blanket, but the blanket wasn't strong enough to hold them. It ripped right down the middle and they fell through, landing on the hard floor. Now, it wasn't my best moment as a youth worker. I asked the team who were with me to take the rest of the young people over to the other side of the room whilst I checked on the boy to see if he was okay. And they carried on with the session and they went into the application of the activity. One of the team said, well, that's a bit like becoming a Christian. You take a leap of faith and God catches you. But one of the young people spoke up, yeah, but God didn't catch him. The question we're looking at today is, can I trust God? I wonder which person's experience is most like your experience when it comes to faith. Have you taken that leap and discovered that God has indeed caught you? Or perhaps you're standing on the edge. You're wanting to believe, you're wanting to take that step to follow him, but something is holding you back. You're just not sure. Or perhaps you have put your trust in God and it didn't go well. Perhaps it feels like you've fallen through the blanket and you're in a heap on the floor. There's a book in the Old Testament called Proverbs. It's written by King Solomon and it's full of wisdom and wise sayings. There's a couple of verses in chapter 3 that says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your path straight. Now the first word is trust. But what does that actually mean? Trust is where belief and faith meet. It's both an inward and an outward reality. To trust something or someone is to believe in it or in them. This belief gives confidence. We can act with a degree of certainty or confidence that whatever we are trusting won't let us down. Now, if you're sitting on a chair right now, you are demonstrating trust. You believe that the chair was sturdy enough and strong enough to hold you, and you acted on that belief by sitting on it. When you purchase something, you exercise trust. Have you ever bought something from eBay or Facebook Marketplace? That's an exercise of trust. You trust the person you're buying from is legit and that the item is as described. You act on this belief by handing over money. And if it goes well, you're more likely to buy something on that platform again. But if you get scammed, you'll probably be reluctant to go through it again. The same is true in relationships. If you get hurt in a relationship, you're less likely to trust someone else, even though they are not the person who hurt you in the first place. Now, we'll come back to that thought in just a moment. Solomon says to us to trust in the Lord. He invites us to believe in God and to act on that belief. But how do I know that I can trust God? Well, in exactly the same way that you know that you can trust anyone or anything. Your past experience and the past experience of others. When you do something for the first time, you don't have past experience to draw from. Now, I've seen this many times in my kids as they've grown up. The first time they go on a roller coaster, the first time they go down a fast water slide, they wait for ages trying to draw up the courage to take that first step. And when they do, more often than not, they love it and they go again and again and again. But it doesn't always go that well. One time when we were on holiday, Malachi went down a water slide, but he didn't go very fast. He got stuck. And then someone else came hurtling down the slide, crashing into him. It wasn't a good experience, and he didn't want to do it again. For the rest of the holiday, he wouldn't go on that slide, and I couldn't blame him. Though the issue wasn't with the slide, It was with his swimming top that caused him to not slide very well. And the other person who came down before the slide was clear. We also use the experience of others to help us, especially if they are people we trust. Have you bought something or signed up for something or tried something because someone you trust recommended it to you? So what does your past experience or the experience of others, especially the people you trust, say to you about trusting God? Does it point you towards him or away from him? Now, Solomon's invitation is also a challenge. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. There's quite a lot in that. That is all in trust. Trust God with all you have, even when all you have makes you think otherwise. In my experience, this is a goal that I'm aiming for. It's not a requirement for entry. I started following Jesus when I was 17. I was at a Christian festival called Spring Harvest, and somebody gave an invitation for people who wanted to become a Christian, for people who wanted to follow Jesus, to respond by saying so. We were invited to stand up as a visible symbol of the trust that we were putting in Jesus. And I did it, and I haven't looked back since. I can pinpoint the date and the time. It was April the 9th, 1994, at about 7:30 p.m. That was the moment when I decided to become a Christian. But I believed in Jesus before then. I knew enough to know that I could trust God. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't even know all the questions. But I did know enough to know that I was ready to take that step. Trusting God isn't about blind faith. It's a choice in light of the evidence that we have available to us. It was a choice that I made with my whole heart, knowing that my life would change, especially my attitudes and my actions. At that moment, I trusted God with my eternity. I trusted him with my salvation. And as my faith grew, I started to trust him with more and more. My future, my identity, my money. That was a difficult one. Taking that step to embrace the discipline of percentage giving, of allocating a set amount of my income and giving it away, took some time. See, my understanding was that I should spend all I had on me. And if I wasn't going to spend it, I should save it so I could spend it on me later. My understanding of giving was something you did if you had enough left over. My understanding, when it came to my money, was I should live, save, give. But my faith told me something different. It challenged me to give, save, live. Louise and I chose and continue to choose to trust God in this as we trust him with our finances. So when it comes to your life, what aspects do you think God wants you to trust him with? Well, all of them. Solomon encouraged us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him. My goal when it comes to my faith and my trust of God is to trust him with everything. But that didn't happen to start with. It's a bit like this hand. There's bits of our lives that we hold on to. But with God's help, we're able to let go, to trust him with more and more. To trust him with our relationships, with our finances, with our identity, with our future, with our habits and our disciplines. With his help, we're able to trust him with everything we have, to submit to him in every aspect of your life. So, what is still in your hand? What are the things in your life that you're still holding on to? What things have you not trusted God with? Is your hand completely closed, or is there just a couple of things that you're holding on to? To grow in your trust of God means letting go of those things that you're holding on to. Now, you might think, well, why should I do that? Why should I submit to God in all things? Why should I give him access and even control of every aspect of my life? Well, the answer to that question depends on where you're at on this spectrum of faith and trust in God. To trust in the Lord with everything you have is what Jesus asks of you if you follow him. If you've taken that step to trust God with your life and with your eternity, you have taken the step to do this. So on one level, you don't have a choice. It's what you've signed up for. Now, if that's not you, if you haven't made that decision, if you're still, figuring out if you can trust God, Well, you don't have to do this, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Solomon gives us a glimpse of what happens when we put our entire trust in God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. He will direct your path. He will guide you. He will help you. And this isn't so much a reward as it is a result. It's not that we get to that level and it unlocks an extra bonus for us. You have reached level 5 Christian. You now have access to straight paths. When we fully trust in God and we fully submit to him, he's able to guide us fully. When we give God access to all areas, he is able to help us and inspire us and challenge us in all areas of our lives. And the more I open my hands before God, the more I let go of the aspects of my life that I have a tendency to cling to, the more I submit to God and seek to follow him, the better I become. There hasn't been an area of my life that hasn't improved after I've submitted it to God. Jesus makes life better, and he makes us better at life. And in making us better, he guides us to see that often the things we run after are not the things that are going to make our lives better. Jesus does not promise us an easy life or a fat life, but a fat one. That's with a PH. As I trust God with my money, I'm not trusting him to double my bank balance, but I am trusting him to help me be a good steward of what I have, to use it wisely, to be a blessing to me and my family, but also to be a blessing to others. As I trust God with my life, I'm not trusting him to make my life more comfortable or easier. I'm trusting him to make my life more fulfilling and more rewarding, to give my life meaning and purpose and destiny. So where are you at in trusting God? Are you learning to let go, or are you still holding on? Perhaps you're still on the edge of the table, wanting to take that first step, or perhaps you feel like you're in a crumpled heap on the floor. Perhaps the pain of life makes it difficult for you to trust God. Where was he when that relationship started to go south? Where was he when you were having trouble at work? Where was he when that diagnosis came in? Where was he when the person you loved died? We've talked about suffering in this series, but to be honest, there aren't any simple answers to the big questions that it throws up. The pain of the past can be an obstacle to trusting God. Trust requires vulnerability, but pain and disappointment often results in building walls around us to protect us. And if that's you, I believe that God stands before you with his arms open wide, offering you an invitation to follow him and to put your trust in him. He asks you to let the pain of your past go. He asks you to let your guard down and take that step of faith to trust him. And as you do, he promises you that he won't let you go. There have been times in life where I felt like a crumpled heap on the floor, even though I trust God. But I know that this is because God hasn't dropped me. Life goes on. Life has its ups and downs. And in my experience of trusting God, I know that he's with me through the highs and the lows. I know that he's with me when pain and difficulty hits. He doesn't leave me on the floor, but graciously, he helps me. He comforts me. He gives me the strength to get up and go again. To trust is to hope. As we put our trust in God, we also put our hope in him. As he invites us to open our hands to trust him with every aspect of our life, he is also inviting us to put all of our hope in him. That means my hope isn't in me or my ability. It isn't in my bank balance or what I earn. It's not in what I do. It's not in my relationships or my health or my looks. My trust is in God and my hope is in him. Now let me read these wonderful words written by the prophet Isaiah. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Can you trust God? Absolutely. He is the only one who is fully worthy of our trust. He is the only one who is worthy of our hope. So where does that leave you? Are you a Jesus follower who's still holding on to bits of your life? Are there places where you're not fully trusting God? He invites you to let go, to trust him. Or are you standing on the edge of the table wondering if you can start to trust God? You may carry the scars of life. You may even blame God for some of them. You can trust him. You can let go of the pain of the past and trust him. And as you do, as you put your trust and your hope in him, as you step off the edge, you won't fall. You will soar.